Right, and a very good morning to you guys. Well, it is morning for me anyway. This is about 4 days after taking the head off. What could have been a completely calamitous, potentially a death knell for the car. I mean, I would have probably had to replace the. I would have had to replace the engine. There's just no way I could have repaired it otherwise. But yeah, getting another K series with 50,000 miles on the clock would have been difficult. Um, there are some low mileage examples around, but it's difficult to get hold of now. Anyway, first thing, I just wanted to show you this, and there is a reason for this cable being here. If we go for the boot, is it open? Oh, did I actually shut it? Oh no, it's not even shut. I left it half open. Well, I can tell you now, it does work. It does work now, that cable. It obviously needed some sort of lubrication when we last came to it a couple of weeks ago. Some reason, why is that leaking? Right, it might be just me. As you can see, I've got a dehumidifier working away in the car to try and release any trapped moisture within the car. I would definitely recommend one of these. I think they're great in the house, by the way. If you've got mold problems or damp problems in the house, this is brilliant. Don't really bother with the disposable ones. They're great for like sitting around, but they don't take moisture out very quickly. It's more of a sort of maintenance where it's constantly working, whereas this works really quickly. But you have to have the doors shut because otherwise it's going to take moisture, humidity from the air and put it into the tank. I mean, if I look at the tank, it has taken not a lot, but it's taken some water out. I didn't expect much, but there is some water that is being expelled into this machine, so I'm going to leave it to do its work. But I would definitely recommend this if you've just bought a car and you're not sure how dry it is on the inside. Well, this will help. The only thing you have to be aware of is certain types of leather can dry out if you use this too much. So if you've got one of these in your garage, for instance, and you want to use one to keep your classic car, basically reduce the moisture within the garage in general. I've known a situation where one of these was left overnight with a bloke who had a Rover P6 with leather seats, really nice. It's a box pleat leather seats, so I think the later ones from post 74, I think. And after one night of leaving his dehumidifier on, probably one of these, probably this size, all the piping on the seats had just gone wavy. It had taken so much moisture out that the seats had just dried up overnight, and the piping went wavy, and he needed the whole seat redone. That is everybody's nightmare with leather seats. So these are not all. You have to make sure you know what you're doing with these. But anyway, I'm going to shut the boot, and it has shut straight away. So we're going to leave that to do its work today. But my job today, I am probably going to do a little bit of de-rusting in places. Again, with the wire drill, it is a bit wet out here. But I want to look at the brakes. I want to look at the front brakes. We haven't even looked at the back brakes yet. I haven't got the wheels off. I just want to concentrate on one job at a time, particularly as the head is, at this moment, still off. And we're waiting for the new parts to come through, the water pump kit, etc., and the head gasket. I'm going to take both wheels off, and we're going to take the slider pins out. So there's two bolts, take them out, and then hopefully with a small spanner we can pry the slider pins out and clean them up, because I suspect there's congealed grease in there, and we have there's all types of greases out there, but I'm going to use ceramic grease. Now this is what you use on the back of brake pads. You can use copper grease, but this stuff is the modern stuff. It's high temperature, and it is recommended as a better option than copper is. But in sliders, you do not use copper ease, because copper ease is a petroleum based product and it can destroy the actual rubber on the slider over time, whereas silicon based stuff does not, and it allows the sliders to do their work. I just want to rule out that the sliders are not going stiff. I will do the backs, but I've got a feeling with the backs there's a few different issues. I think the handbrake is slightly caught on one side. The handbrake cable might need changing. I think the discs are okay, and I think the pads are okay, but the calipers may be slightly seized. I think this is quite a common fault with, I've known a few people with R8 Rovers who say exactly the same thing. They always seize. Like, you leave them standing for a few months, seized, no chance. And no amount of taking the caliper off, winding it back in, putting it back on the wheel, putting your foot on the brake, and then repeating that a few times to unseize it, to get it moving in and out, no amount of that is going to work. So we're just going to concentrate on the fronts, but I'm aware that the backs before the MOT, well, it could be a couple of months. I did say November, but it already is. So it is taking longer as usual, but I want to make sure the car is right before it actually goes for the MOT. So I better crack on. Right, first thing to tackle, we've got 2 bolts at the back of the sliders. I'm just going to give them some penetrating fluid, of which I'm fastly running out, as I thought I would. Okay, just a little bit of penetrating fluid, and then we'll take off the bolts. I think they look like 13 mils. Okay, so we're just going to whack these off, and we'll take a look. There's one there, and there's one at the bottom. Make sure I've got the right position. Giving in. There we go. There's one released. Bottom one again. Some leverage. That moment where you actually release it and then you hit your face against something, because you've basically caused your whole body to right, now we can take these bolts out. They're quite loose actually. There's somewhere in. That's the bolt. Oh, sorry, the camera's here. Now, you see that actually there is copper slip on that. Oh dear, does that mean the sliders are covered in copper slip? I think it does. On close inspection, these actually move quite nicely. I'll just show you with a pry tool. I'm putting my hand in that way. They move really nicely actually. That is precisely what you want. And I'm just going to put some ceramic grease in there. I think the copper slip may have just been for the threads of the bolt. It may not have been for that, but that is great. And the bottom one is also moving, so I think all we'll do, I'll put some ceramic grease in there, and I think we should be okay. So this was an easy video. Let's say both sliders are really nice and firm now. I'm going to put the bolts back in. I'm going to tighten them up. I don't know what torque, but I'm going to tighten them until they're tight enough. You get, the thing is with following the book is there's some things you have to follow the torque on. Engine bits, timing belt, tensioner, head bolts, you have to follow it. But on these sort of things, just make sure it's tight enough but not over tight. And as you become more experienced with working on cars, you know when a bolt is at the end of its thread, to the point where you don't want to cross thread things. But these sliders, they work absolutely fine. I'll just have a look on the other side now. Right, they're now back on nice and firm, and at least I know the sliders work. The front brakes look fine, the pads are thick, the discs are fine, tiny bit of scoring but okay. The shield is now away from the disc. I think it is the rear brakes that will need looking at on this car, but I'm just going to give this a bit of a ride brush round. This is going to have to be released at some point, so I'll just have a little bit of a clean up around the pads and then put some brake cleaner on this. Yeah, just go around here. Usually there'd be a lot of brake dust, but it's just corrosion from being standing. Brake discs and calipers look terrible after a couple of years, but then when you brush them up they look amazing again. But no, I'm not going to go into all this painting malarkey like I did with the Focus, because the point is to get a running car in the short term, and then we'll go from there really. As long as all the problems are dealt with, all the broken bits are dealt with, the painting and stuff, I'm not so bothered about. In fact, I think this could be a nice example of something that actually shows a little bit of its age. I don't want it to go to the Pride. I don't want it to go to the Pride of Longbridge next year. If you're not in the UK, basically that is like the biggest Rover show in the country, I suspect. It's to celebrate the anniversary of when the factory finally closed in April 2005, and it always happens around the weekend of that date, or the nearest one, and I intend for this car to be there 100%. So that's my aim, and it will be there by hook or crook. I think that's definitely on the cards. And if anybody wants to say hello to me, please do. But as I say, I'm just a normal guy who makes a few YouTube videos while pushing this as well. I'm not a celebrity, I'm not an alien. Although saying that, as of this date, my subscribers are going up. Last time I checked it was about 75 subscribers, but it is going up, and it will have gone up since this video goes out, possibly to around double that. So anyway, I'll continue to wire brush this down, and then we'll go to the other side. Right, I've just had a really good go in half an hour with the wire brush, and look how well it's cleaned up. I mean, most of the ball joints are really good, apart from that one that's starting to crack, and obviously the CV boot. But I've just had to release the ABS wiring so I can clean up the bracket and all here and behind here, a bit of here, a bit behind here where the subframe goes, sort of there. I've got to look at this bit here, but it's not too bad. It's just access. I'll deal with that in a second, but it's all come up really, really nicely with a wire brush. It will need treating, and I'll go over with my rust killer, but it looks 10 times better now, not just like flaky all over the place. It does look 10 times better now. Rust can make things look so bad. Might need to go up there as well just to have a little prod around, but it seems to be all fine and the shocks don't leak. I've just gone round again, and I've discovered up here we've got some flaking paint which I've gone back along the seam a little bit, and up there where it's actually started to actually go properly, but it's all clean now. There really isn't much to speak about. I mean, I've gone over that bracket there, and obviously in the future I'm probably going to need to take that clip out if I'm replacing this massive hose. I think the only reason they actually have a massive brake hose that goes in this S is because brake pipes always rot where they go near the wheels. So Rover thought, oh no, we won't put brake pipes on that rot, we'll put a hose on that needs replacing. It's much easier to replace for the home DIYist. Is that the reason, or is there some other reason? But to me, it's perfectly reasonable to have done this. It is one long hose pipe. I suspect they're about 20 quid, these hoses, or even more than that. But now that I've de-rusted the suspension, you can see sort of the Japanese double wishbone layout a bit more. So here we've got the bottom arm that goes through into a ball joint down here. Then we've got another bush here which pivots, this fork pivots up and basically pinches the shock absorber and spring, which goes through that top arm with the wishbone arm. So you've got the wishbone arm, you've got the shock absorber and its fork mounting in the bottom arm. You've got that ball joint, you've got the two inner joints, one there and one there for the bottom arm. I tell you what, if that ball joint ever goes, you're having to replace the whole arm. That's one expensive arm. That's quite common on a lot of cars, but this is one very big arm. It is very old school. You've got your track rod, your steering knuckle and your drive shaft that goes through, and then obviously you've got this arm that pivots up to the front. So basically you've got the hub and this pivots off the top wishbone. It does look very early 90s, very much quite an early Japanese sort of design, and I think Rover had a lot of input in this, and they certainly did towards the end. And by the time this model came out, they had their own little tweaks. They certainly did the same with the ZR, the ZS, the ZT, etc. They all made their tweaks. But apparently these facelifted models have much more stiffer suspension. Rumour has it they have the stiffer suspension of the earlier ZRs, not the ZS. The ZS models, not the 180 though. The ZS 180, different beast. But this has got potentially the same suspension, stiffer suspension, I presume in the damper and spring department, than the earlier Rover 45. So that is rumour, but it's never been proven. But yeah, right, I'm going to take a break and then we're going to go to the other side, sliders, and we're just going to have a really good wash and brush up. I'm not going to treat any of this. I'm just brushing it back to see what is basically left, and quite frankly it's brushed up so well. It actually looks so nice. I actually feel like leaving it as it is, because it actually looks very honest. We'll see how we feel. Right, after a small tea break, off to this side. So you can see how sort of crusty it is on the surface. I've had a go at this before. The transmission is still leaking into the bowl, as you can see. Some of that is water, but I'm going to put some clean film over this. This is going to be cleaned up anyway with a bit of contact clean or something before I put the sump back on. But I think it's just been dripping there onto the floor, but it all looks good. Just needs a bit of a wire brush up. I'm going to go over all this. I've previously done this and it's all come back really nicely. I've taken the drain holes out, as you can see they are leaking water, but it's all good really. So we'll whack these off and have a look. Well, this is my first problem on this side, is that, sorry, camera focus, this bolt is seized inside the slider. Now I've pulled the boot back and I'm going to put some locking pliers here and have a go with the 13. It just seems to be spinning inside there, so I'm going to try and take it out that way. I hope it's not damaged, but if it is, well, we'll just get a new kit. Right, what's happened is that bolt, I think it's cross-threaded. I think it was way too tight. So what I'm going to have to do is buy a pair of new sliders. But to get this, we've got the bottom one off, but the top one, we're just going to take this off. In fact, what I'll do is take the entire caliper off and have it hanging. But we're going to cut that bolt off, and well, this side will get new sliders. So we're going to cut that with a grinder and just take the whole thing out. Okay, as you can see, it's just, I've cut through that bit and it is literally just popped out. I think we need a new slider. Right, I think it's fair to say for now, I have got the bolt out, but the slider's in ruin. So I'm going to get some new sliders, which isn't a bad thing anyway. So at least I definitely, I mean the other side's fine, but at least I definitely know that there's no issues. I'm not going to take it apart today because I've got to take the pads off and everything, and these two 15mm bolts. I don't want to be faffing around with the brake caliper at this time, but what I will do is, bearing in mind I've got to order a couple of these and then we'll go from there. But yeah, that bolt has completely stripped its threads. Look at that one. Yeah, I think it's fair to say it's pretty much stripped its threads at the end. Oh dear. Oh well, these things happen. I'm just going to wire brush this up now and move on from that. Little steps. Okay, again, it's all cleaned up really well along the suspension arms. And I've done a little bit digging upstairs like the other side, but exactly like the other side. Nothing really to write home about. Now I am going to take this caliper off at some point, but I was hoping not to disturb these, but as I say, this one's got to come off for new sliders. I might as well change the sliders over there. That's not too much of a bother, at least I know the other side come out nicely. What I am doing, and I have got it in neutral guys, because I'm not risking lifting these. Definitely not. We're just going to get the wheel moving, and I tell you what, that was stiff. That was stiff. See, I can't. Christ, that is stiff. Really does. I think there's just all sorts of detritus stuck in that disc. But yeah, I'm just going to keep doing this for a few minutes. Right, today I think is a case of 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Not 4 steps back, 2 steps back. So we have made some progress, but we've ended up with another part needed to be ordered. To be honest, a slider kit will probably come with, it'll probably be a 2 kit, but I don't really want to just replace the ones on that side and then not do this side. So I'd probably replace, you know, you don't do one side, you do both with brakes. So maybe the idea is at this moment in time is that if I crack the nipples off, the brake nipples off, I can actually bleed the system and get some of this mucky brake fluid. I mean, that is dark. Brake fluid should not be dark. I mean, I could show you what normal brake fluid looks like, and it's not that, well, healthy. I'm not even going to put my brake fluid tester in because I know it will tell me there's way more water in that than there should be. But yeah, it's been a bit of a wet day again today, so it's all getting rather messy under the car, and I'm getting a bit tired of spending about an hour working on the car, 2 hours cleaning everything. I do need a garage, and that is on the cards after Christmas, but not for this. It'll be for Monsieur over there, so that I can keep that car nice and dry, because it is a Ford, you know. They do rust, they do enjoy rusting, but you know, I've spent a significant amount of money on that car, and she's pristine. The numbers of Focuses are just plummeting in this country, and I think they'll be down to quite a few low numbers soon, but not as rare as these. There's about 6,000-7,000 of them in total. About half of them are on the road and half of them are sawned. That is how scarce these are getting, but parts are still decent. But anyway, today we have unseized both wheels. They were just stiff. The discs had that light pit into them that you only really get unless the disc has been standing for quite some time, so I'm quite pleased with that. So we're going to leave it here today. We may start looking at the back brakes very soon, but right now we've got the suspension all wire brushed down, the wheel arches done. I think we'll proceed to have a look further underneath at the rear of the car next. I probably will get the brakes off saying that, because I've got to lift them off the ground. Okie dokie, see you soon guys.